Today, we're going to be diving into a technology that's quietly changing, well, pretty much everything in our digital world. We're talking about synthetic data. Now, it's a concept that promises to solve some of the biggest headaches in tech, but as you'll see, it also opens up a whole new can of worms. We live in a world where the word fake just sets off alarm bells, right? Fake products, fake news, they're all things we try to steer clear of. But what about fake data? Well, it turns out this might be the one fake thing that's actually an incredible force for good. So let's get into why. To really get why we even need synthetic data in the first place, we have to talk about the massive problem we have with real data. It's a problem you could call the data dilemma. Okay, now here's a stat that's probably going to make you pause. Most companies, most organizations are practically drowning in data, and yet they use less than 5% of it for any kind of real, meaningful decision-making. That means over 95% of the data we're all so busy collecting is just sitting there. It's digital deadweight. And that just begs the question, doesn't it? If data is the new oil, why on earth are we letting so much of it just go to waste? What's standing in the way of turning all this raw information into actual insight? Well, the reasons are actually frustratingly common. A lot of real data is locked down by really strict privacy rules. Or it's got all the biases and imbalances of the real world baked right into it, which makes it totally unreliable for training fair AI models. And for really rare stuff, like a specific type of market crash or a 1 in a million medical condition, there's just not enough data to learn from. And on top of all that, it's usually messy, incomplete, and just incredibly expensive to get in the first place. So if real data is the problem, what's the solution? Well, this is where synthetic data comes into the picture, and it's a really innovative answer to these exact challenges. Okay, so the crucial point here is this. Synthetic data isn't just a bunch of random numbers. It's data that's been artificially created by an AI to look and act just like a real data set. It has the same patterns, the same relationships. You could say it has the same statistical heartbeat as the original. But, and this is the key, it contains zero real, sensitive, personal information. So the core difference is really simple when you boil it down. Real data is collected, synthetic data is generated. This means we can actually design it to be complete, to be balanced, and to be totally privacy safe right from the get-go. But the most powerful difference is this. Real data shows us what has happened in the past. Synthetic data lets us model what could happen. And that shifts data from being just a historical record to being a tool for exploring the future. And this ability to simulate and create is where we see the true power of this tech. Let's take a look at what this fake data can actually do out in the wild. The applications are just incredibly broad. You can enhance privacy, sharing deep statistical insights without ever exposing a single person's data. We can bridge gaps by creating balanced data sets for groups that are underrepresented, which can improve things like fairness in healthcare. And maybe the most exciting part, we can model scenarios that are way too rare or way too dangerous to ever test in the real world. To really see this in action, let's talk about training a self-driving car. So a company like Waymo created a perfect digital twin of San Francisco. In this virtual city, they can run thousands of dangerous scenarios. A kid running out into the street, a sudden 4-car pileup, things you could never ever safely test in reality. The car's AI learns and masters these situations in this safe, simulated world, and then that intelligence gets transferred over to the physical car. And this isn't science fiction, it is happening right now. MasterCard is already using synthetic data to train its fraud detection models. They can literally create data from massive, complex fraud schemes that have never actually happened, making their systems way smarter and ready for threats that don't even exist yet. It's pretty incredible. But for all its power, we absolutely have to talk about the peril. Because creating data, instead of just collecting it, brings a whole new and really complex set of risks to the table. AI researcher Jordan Harrod puts it perfectly. She says there's this huge gap between how a model performs in a clean, perfect synthetic world and how it actually performs in our messy, unpredictable reality. And bridging that gap, well, that's a serious, serious challenge. A perfect example of this comes from OpenAI. They trained a robotic hand to solve a Rubik's Cube inside a simulation. And in there, it was a total master, succeeding 90% of the time. But the moment they moved that exact same AI to a real physical hand, its success rate plummeted to 60%. Why? Because all the tiny, unpredictable physics of the real world, like friction, lighting, gravity, they changed everything. And this simulation gap is just one of the risks. There's something called model collapse, where an AI trained only on synthetic data starts to literally forget what reality even looks like. There's bias amplification, where any biases in the original source data get magnified in the synthetic copy. And then, of course, there are the more obvious dangers: malicious use for deepfakes and the general erosion of public trust when everything can be faked. The real challenge isn't just creating data, it's about keeping it calibrated to the truth. So with all these risks in mind, the goal isn't just to create more synthetic data, it's to create it responsibly. And that means we need a whole new playbook for how to govern it. For the developers who are actually building these systems, the World Economic Forum lays out a pretty clear strategy. They've got to invest in traceability, so we always know where the data came from. They need to be transparent when they're using it, and, crucially, they have to use hybrid approaches, constantly grounding their models with fresh, real-world data. This is what helps prevent that model collapse we just talked about, where the AI just drifts too far from reality. And for policymakers, the key word is nuance. A one-size-fits-all rule just won't work here. Because let's be honest, creating synthetic data for a video game is a lot less risky than creating it for a clinical drug trial. The goal is to support standards that are specific to each industry and to create clear legal rules for things like labeling, so there's never any question about what kind of data is being used. It's about building guardrails, not roadblocks. And this brings us to the end of our explainer today. And to the one big question that this whole new frontier really leaves us with. In a world where data can be manufactured, not just found, our whole relationship with information is fundamentally changing. The technology is powerful, the potential is vast, but it forces us to ask a really important question. How is this going to reshape our very definition of truth and trust? And maybe more importantly, who gets to be the one to decide what's real in that new reality?